Hi, everybody.
Hello.
That's our name. Difficulties, but we're on it. Thank you everyone for coming out. I know Dr. Wiki really appreciates it. I do. We really, Firehouse loves seeing our community support us. Yeah, people like you just allow us to have events like this, have a space to have events like this. So thank you guys for coming. We're so excited to have Dr. Deborah Wiki here today.
Yes, you can do that.
Okay,
You can, do that.
I was just gonna
And you can
introduce her.
switch right into Deb if you
Okay,
want to.
okay.
I answer to both. So.
She got her PhD in educational psychology and wrote this book, Capable, that we're all here for. Today, it is officially a bronze winner of the Living Now Book Awards. I just really like the quote from Dr. Gary Chapman that Capable is the book I would like to place in the hands of every couple who has had a child with special needs. So I think that's really exciting to have for a book as well. So yeah, we're just gonna have a little chat and then definitely feel free to jump in if there's any questions. But yeah, thank you for coming and help me welcome Dr. Wiki.
Just
Go for it.
folks. I just want to say thank you to everybody who came. Every person out here supported me in this work one way or another. My awesome family. Thank you, awesome family. People have come here and friends and just everyone here because friends, neighbors who are now good friends, and everybody that just got behind me on this effort. So I really, really appreciate it. It can be overwhelming and daunting. And I think at this point, I see Capable and the Living Now award is really an honor. And I see Capable getting some traction, but it wouldn't have gotten any traction at all if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you so much to everybody.
So why did you write Capable as a memoir?
Yeah, that was a back and forth. There was a little teeth gnashing around that for quite a while because initially I was writing as more prescriptive nonfiction, kind of more like a handbook style. And some of the early focus group folks that read the book said they really liked it, but it didn't feel good to me. And I kept thinking of Carl Rogers' quote, that which is most personal is most universal. And I really wanted to give people, readers, memoir readers, and also parents who might be, not knowing where to turn after a diagnosis, kind of that personal experience. I didn't want a dry sort of handbook how-to kind of feel. I wanted to give folks a visceral sense of what parenting is like, and hopefully help readers feel something, and then help parents who might be in that position then say, give them pause to think, hey, what kind of messages am I sending my child? And I thought the best way to do that was through memoir.
Yeah, I noticed, it seems to reach more people this way. Got some new people just wandering in, which is great.
We have a couple, we have 3 seats here.
Yeah, there's
too.
3 seats here.
And some Martinellis. I think Ravity bought glasses, honey, so people who
there's
want
cups if you want.
Ravity bought glasses.
Yeah, it just has more people buying it than, I don't know people's personal lives, but I feel like just a wide variety of people that are just interested in a memoir, or other people,
Right.
not necessarily they know, but you don't know who you're going to run into in life. So something that they probably wouldn't buy a handbook necessarily, it can reach more people that way. So expectations is part of your subtitle, and it's kind of a loaded word. How did you view that role of expectations in parenting, especially children that are labeled different, as you call them, or I don't know. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. So I feel like expectations is a really loaded word, and depending on who you talk to, they're bad. There's something to stay away from. If you're in a Buddhist tradition, they're grasping and not a good thing to have. If you're, there's some authors who feel like, oh, set expectations aside. And I came from an education tradition prior to being a parent, and for the way I think about expectations is that kind of without them, I didn't have a vision for where I wanted to see my child. So there's a chapter in the book where I talk a little bit about sort of holding two ideas sacred at the same time. So there was a lot that wasn't right, wasn't going well, a lot of difficult things, but then there was also where I saw him, where I had a vision for what I wanted to see over time. And by holding those two together, holding those two sacred together, I think I was able to go, we're able to go those next 15 yards, but without those expectations, I believe, and the teachers in the room, I think, will agree with me that you get what you expect. And so for me, expectations was not a dirty word. It was, hey, I see you writing letters to a roommate and writing notes to your roommate in college. I see you signing for a car loan. I see you doing these kinds of things as an adult. And I held those in my head as we were going along, because that allowed me to kind of say, okay, if I want this, then I can't just settle for this intervention, or I can't just put him in this box now because he's not going to get where I see him going. So that's why for me, expectations was not a dirty word. In fact, it was pivotal.
Yeah, because you kind of need those goals. And as kind of part of that, did you ever that point of where, not that your expectations changed, but what you had in mind as your expectation just looked differently?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think I talk about that. There's a book called Last Question where we talk about that. Look, I kind of, when I talk with parents, when I consult with parents, I say, you need to have a vision in mind, a vision of capable that you have in mind for your child, no matter what that is, no matter where they start. And necessarily that vision is going to change over time and you're going to adjust it, but you got to have one.
Yeah. And you're unmoored otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough.
You could add anything to reveal more of Jack's voice. Do you have anything that you would add? Or?
Yeah, I do. I have one. And the teachers, there are teachers out there that were teachers of Jack. And one thing that we were going to get tubes to tube on the Poudre River a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking about, times in his life that he felt were wins and times that he felt were losses. And I said, well, what's the time you logged as a win? He said, well, definitely getting out of special ed. And I said, really, did you read? And I thought, oh gosh, that's like the right answer, like in Bible school when someone says Jesus, and that's the right answer. So I said, are you sure? I said, are you sure you really wanted out of special ed as a mid-year sixth grader? Or did you just want out because your hair on fire mom wanted you out? And that's kind of all of our fears, right? All of us who've had kids is kind of living vicariously through your child. It's not something he wants, it's something I needed for him to have. And he said, no, he said, there was something, and teachers from school will remember this. There was a class called cooperative games. He said, Mom, was cooperative games. He said, I wanted to be in cooperative games. And as long as I was in special ed, every day of cooperative games, I had to sit in with the remediation teacher, and I never got to experience cooperative games. And so it really felt good to me, because that let me know that, for me, even now as he's an adult, that it wasn't just me, but that he wanted that as well. And it may be something that we all need to keep in mind, even if our kids can't express it, they too may be recognizing that they're missing something while they're singled out with whatever their label is. Not to say that services aren't important, not to say that, and a special ed teacher, not to say that what we provide isn't important, but to honor their voices and recognize that, they get programmed all day. And, if they were able to voice what they were missing, I wonder what they'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the feeling of being left out is
exactly
universal.
And that's the most important thing when you're a middle schooler.
Yeah.
Right, we have middle school, high school folks, teachers there. So
you also say that capable is for parents of children with all kinds of diagnoses. What do you mean by that? Since
I do.
you're for one particular.
I do. I think the ideas in capable hold no matter where your child starts, because the messages we send by what we say and what we don't say and the way we act matter regardless of where your child starts. So, Jack was not, he was not nonverbal. He was not in a wheelchair. He was not he did not have the severity of challenge that many of the kids I work with have. But no matter where you start, you're always going to end up in a better place if you receive capable messages. So a couple examples. I worked with kids last 3 summers before COVID in Guatemala at a school for kids with special needs called Somos Hijos de Lago. And Sophie knows because she was there for a lot of that. And when the teachers lift the cup to all those students' mouths, what they're telling them is, we don't think you can do that. We don't think you can lift the cup without spilling. And that's the message they're getting. Last year, a student of mine, I'll give him another name, Stephen. When I didn't say to Stephen, this was my mistake, when I didn't say to 9th grader, when I didn't say, Stephen, what are you going to do your passion project on? I was probably sending the message that you are so behind. There's a student with learning disabilities. I can't imagine you ever getting to the passion project, right? Mm-hmm. So what message was I sending? Another example, a mom I work with this year, and some of you teachers are going to know, and you're going to be shaking your head. Sat in meetings with that parent, and the parent kept saying in front of this 6th grade boy who had a label of severe emotional disturbance. Oh, he doesn't like computers. He doesn't do computers. Computers make him nervous. He doesn't do computers. Within earshot of her child. What message is her son getting? So I would argue whether the label you've been given is stuttering or autism or anxiety or ADHD, you're going to fare better if you receive capable messages rather than messages that come from a place of fear. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it doesn't matter where you start.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned for you, and then you learned later, Jack also had a goal or like a win of getting out of special ed was his. That was the goal. But that's just not realistic for everyone.
Right.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, I know. And that's why we wrote that's why I chose to write as a memoir, really, because, that's the power of one story. So for Jack, my vision of capable for Jack was that he graduate high school, graduate college, and work. And for that vision, for him to fulfill that vision, I felt he had to be out of special ed. In his case, I felt the special ed was holding him back from the vision of capable I have for him. I want to say loud and clear, and I believe I say in the book, that that's not necessarily the case for everyone. Our vision of capable for each child doesn't necessarily mean exiting special education. In his case, it did. So I recommend to parents that they identify a vision of capable for their child wherever their child's at. So if you've got a 5-year-old, it might be, I want my daughter to be able to be a Girl Scout, selling Girl Scout cookies and spending all night at Girl Scout camp when she's 12. If you've got for another child, the vision of capable may be that they can participate in family birthday parties, family parties, friends parties, using their assistive communication device and get through that whole party. So the vision you have for capable for your child may range vastly. It doesn't have to be exit from special ed, but again, holding on to that vision and then choosing carefully, being a pretty critical consumer of the kinds of things that you take on for your child, the kinds of supports you put them in, the kinds of modifications you allow based on where you want to get them is still going to be critical. So again, it doesn't have to be exit from special ed. Any vision of capable can be a valid one depending on where your kid starts.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. What do you hope people take from this book?
It's got so many people here. I'm looking at people. I love all these folks that really initially read the book because they wanted to support me. But then when I thought that this book, the target audience for this book, was going to be parents who were reeling after some kind of diagnosis that their child received. I still think that is a key audience. But what I was surprised about was that as a memoir, some folks like it as a memoir, as a story, as that kind of what we talked about initially in terms of that which is most personal, is most universal, that being that sharing my story, warts and all, made folks feel something. So when you ask me what I want, what my hope is for the book is those who are reading as a memoir, I hope that it makes folks feel something. Those who are reading it because they have a child who's received some kind of diagnosis and they don't know if they should take in, swallow every word that the diagnostician told them, hook, line, and sinker or not. For them, I hope that they say, hey, she did this with her kid and she had a good outcome. Maybe I could take some of these ideas and it would make a difference for my kid.
Yeah.
So in the end, I hope that these ideas are durable enough that they don't just lie on the page, but they do some work in the world in terms of changing minds and hearts around what our kids with special needs can do, and then ultimately then change lives for kids, all who've been labeled as different in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too in terms of when you're reaching for a broader audience, or I just wonder if parents that don't have their kids diagnosed with any particular, especially during this past year with a lot of difficulties at school and dealing with that.
Yeah.
I have friends that are parents that have a lot of meltdowns at home.
Oh yeah,
They're perfectly fine at school, but in front of a computer with mom, it's hard.
yeah,
And so kind of a lot of people have had to adjust their expectations of their kid.
absolutely.
Can their kid sit in front of a screen for that long? Can they be expected to do homework and like
Absolutely.
all this stuff that maybe can translate in both ways?
No, you're absolutely right. And we talked about that a little bit too one night with some folks about, do you think parenting's parenting, or do you think there's an extra layer? And I think it's true. I think all of our kids at different points in their lives experience situations where they have some extraordinary need, whether it be a parent, whether it be a divorce, a challenge, something that's going on with friends, feeling excluded, depression, all those kinds of things. So I do want to honor that. I think many parents can relate based on that, but I also want to say that I think that there's a level higher. There is a special circle reserved for those parents who the world, either through a professional, a diagnostician, a doctor, a teacher, usually a psychologist, has pronounced that somehow their child doesn't meet the blueprint for typical.
Yeah.
So I agree, all kids can experience extraordinary needs, but I do not want to take anything away from those parents who are parenting a kid who has gotten a stamp put on their child, because that's a whole nother layer of difficulty for a parent.
Oh, definitely. Do you have anything on the horizon? Anything you're working on right now? Not that it sounds like you're plenty
We're
busy
going to the
enough.
Forge Pub after this. You're all invited. That's on my horizon. I think one of the things that we're going to do is they've been talking to me about a companion guide that would lay some of the key ideas in the book out in more of that sort of action-oriented way for parents who do want that. That's one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing that's going on right now is there's a couple schools that have expressed an interest in doing some kind of parent and teacher training around sort of partnering to raise capable kids using some of these ideas, so that it's not parents speaking one language and teachers speaking another. One of the things, I got lots of teacher friends out here, and one of the things that I see is that we teachers, we get our PD, we get our professional development in one way, we read our stuff. And parents,
just when you said PD, I was like,
yeah, no, professional development, and our parents read their self-help books, but too often the two never meet. And so oftentimes it's parents having one expectation of their kids and teachers another. So I'm excited about that as an opportunity. And then a couple of parent groups that are already have kind of contacted me about sort of doing a study around capable and what it might mean for them as they go forward advocating for their kids.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So great. Thanks. A lot of connections out there.
Yeah. Did I forget anything? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, those are all my questions. I didn't know if you guys had any questions. If not, you probably know that she's more than happy to talk at any time.
Can you tell?
So, whatever you're comfortable with, if you want to ask now or.
Yeah,
you'll be
you can ask
around.
now. Also, I have.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to get all of you that came to support. I did want to give you a little remembrance of Capable. So I have these bracelets made and they just say Capable and a published company on the inside. So it's just kind of a nice little remembrance. Hopefully that it's a way to think about Capable when you look at the bracelet. And then also, yeah, I thought about giving out bookmarks, but I thought this is more fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, yeah, are there any questions? Because if they're not, we have more things we can do after, right?
Yes, I was gonna say, you're like, I'm excited.
I have a question.
Yes, Nancy.
Did Jack have his own vision of Capable, or do you think he sort of assumed yours because he was so
Yeah,
young?
you know what, that is really a great question. I think that's gonna be individual to each child. I think some kids are very, very aware. I don't know that he did. I do think that kids, you know, it's like they're in it's like the water around them. So I think there are a number of places in the book where I talk about things we just expected him to do. And by doing that, he thought, well, that must be what they expect of me. They expect me to be able to carry this. They expect me to be able to do this work. They expect me to be able to be part of this group. They expect me to be able to be sent out with all the students. And even if somebody makes a little fun of me, that's okay. I keep going. So I think rather than him having his own vision of Capable for himself, I think it was like, hey, the people who love, the most influential people in my life, the people who love me the most think I can. So I guess I must be able to. And I don't know that he was always like, gun ho, I'm gonna do this. Sometimes it was a slog, but it was like, hey, they think I can. So I don't think they'd put me here if they didn't think I could. And so that became, I think vicariously, that became his vision.
Yeah, it's normalized.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, so Dad, obviously, I'm not a special ed teacher.
No, he's a math teacher. Those are the teachers I bow to.
The general
Math and
teacher,
science.
But I have, because I teach upper math, you know, I've had a lot of kids that are special needs who are exceptional in math, and they end up coming to my class and they're part of the general student population.
Exactly.
And so my question would be, you know, a lot of times those kids come to the class and there's this expectation around them, even with some of the special ed people, that they're not going to do well in the class in terms of their overall grade.
Right.
And that always bothered me because I'd be like, well, how do you know?
Right. How do
And-
you
and it-
know already that they're not gonna
Yeah,
do well?
and it was very difficult
Yeah.
for me then to figure out how to push that student. So truthfully, I've never been able to push those kids because they always come in with this whole support system.
Right.
And so my question is, you know, maybe some of the work you could do would actually help to not just be the special ed people.
So right, with the gen ed teachers.
Yeah, because I think, I think that would be really valuable. I know for me, it would. If I would have had someone say, okay, we'll do this and this, because then we'll see how far he can or he or she can. But it never really is that way.
Well, there are other teachers in this room, Dan, who feel exactly like you, and they're nodding their heads because they do the same thing. And sometimes there's a place in the book where I talk about all the scaffolding we put up around kids. Each thing we add to make something easier, more comfortable, or less embarrassing, or whatever, is a piece of scaffolding we have to take away at some point. And so you're right. So what you talk about when somebody gets to an upper level math class and maybe they've been determined as being somewhere on the autism spectrum, but they're performing very highly in math, but also have autism, is that they have they have the scaffolding built around them of supports, and it's hard to permeate that, right? If you just want to, hey kid, I just want to teach you this subject, but yet you've got the special ed people and the parents who say, oh, he can only do it for this long, or he should only do this much, or you can't give him this many problems, or when you do it in this environment, he will go off. And you're like, well, let me try, let me see. And I agree with you. It's been my experience that when we try, we get some pretty positive surprises. I used to do the same kind of work with students with pretty severe disabilities and getting them jobs in the community, kids with autism. And they'd come out with 2 aides with them, because if this happens, he's gonna have a meltdown and we're gonna have to do a 3-point restraint. And what I've noticed is when you put on those typical expectations, oftentimes the kid rises to them and there's no need for that 3-point restraint. Now, not to say you don't have mistakes. Boy, do I talk about a lot of them in the book, right? A lot of mistakes I made. Remember the milk going down the street? We make mistakes, but I would rather err on the side of making that mistake and giving that kid that, what I call the dignity of risk, of taking those risks and trying that hard math problem that you think might set him off, rather than not even giving them the chance. So I agree with you, Dan. Oh yeah, Carol.
I'm just wondering what Jack's reaction to this book is.
He didn't want to come tonight.
Well,
No, that was a quick clip. Actually, I will tell you, I had a lot of talks we had a lot of discussions, and I said, this book will never see the light of day unless you're 100% okay with this. And I asked him, and I said, if yours was not a story of success and triumph, there'd be no book, right? So you're the hero of this book. And I've had a couple people write on Amazon reviews, Jack is my hero. I said, you're the hero. And if your story of difficulty, which isn't all pretty, if your story of overcoming difficulties could help other kids, would you be okay with that? He said, yes, absolutely. Now, he did not want real names used, and you see how we protected everyone and everyone's identities. So he preferred, I said, you want to come tonight? And he said, no, I prefer to go 100% under the radar on this one. So he'll be joining us for dinner later, and that's just fine. That's just fine. So yeah, no, I think he's proud. I think he's proud of himself, proud of the book, some level proud of me, but I don't think he wants his name used. And that's, I think that'd be true of a lot of us.
I was gonna say, it's like actors watching a movie that they're in, they're like, I don't want to.
Exactly.
I'll be in it, I don't want to.
I don't want to watch the playback.
Yeah.
Well, he's even in his underwear on the cover.
Right. Oh, please. All right. There was a lot of talk about that too. But did you see the tie-in to Captain Underpants? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess we took a little risk with that one.
I guess it's mother's rights.
Exactly. I don't. Yeah, he did. I don't know that he objected so much to the cover, did he? Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. So that's. But I thank everybody thank you all for being here, and again, like I said, I think this will help some people we don't even know, and some we do, but it wouldn't have gotten anywhere without each one of you. People who said, I'll take my Thursday night to hang out here to support Capable. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Was that we were all going to go out the back door right over here to the Forge Pub, and I'm just in celebration of you all and Capable. I'm buying the first round. They have alcoholic and non-alcoholic, so please join us if you can. Thank you.